Bravely Default 2 from Square Enix is the third entry in the Bravely Default franchise. The original Bravely Default was released in 2012 for the 3DS, and it was a powerhouse. Its job system, straightforward story, and crazy ending, and I mean crazy ending, make it one of my favorite RPGs of all time. It's one of the few I've played multiple times. 4 years later, Bravely Default End Layer was released and was a direct continuation of the story. Now, 4 years into the Nintendo Switch's lifecycle, we get Bravely Default 2. This isn't so much a sequel as it is a new story in the franchise. If you haven't played the 3DS games, not to worry. It's not only a new story, but it has all new characters, new mechanics, and a new world. It's a fresh start for a new audience. Playing the previous games won't matter here, but does it deliver on the amazing experience we expect after playing other games in the series? Let's get into it. The story begins with Seth being dead. Whoa! Yes, the main character is dead at the start, but he's resurrected by a mysterious man's voice. After choosing your difficulty level, the prologue begins with a now shipwrecked Seth waking up on a beach to a couple that comes across him. This isn't Link's Awakening though, trust me. He's introduced to Gloria, who is on a hunt to find 4 stolen crystals that are needed to seal away an evil known as the Knight's Nexus. As in previous games, the story is very simple, and frankly recycled, but it's the journey of finding the crystals that you're here to enjoy. Along the way, Elvis, who's collecting something called asterisks, which we'll get into in a bit, and Adele, who's searching for her sister, join the party, and actually, quite early, the whole team is together. This is your team. This happens in the first hour of the game, which is great because you can get right to grinding your party up. Exploring the world of Exelon and its many areas is much more vibrant than in games past. Previously, we were an oversized character trekking across miniature worlds with random encounters that will interrupt you along the way. But now the entire party can be seen in a world with plenty of hidden chests and locations to find. You really feel like you're exploring now, and it's a welcome change. Mixed into the world are various kingdoms and dungeons to visit with bosses to slay and side quests to complete. In Bravely Default 2, this mostly means fetch quests. Finding some item an NPC lost or beating a certain number of enemies in a specific area. Side quests are mostly dull, but they're quick and it's fun to unlock rewards such as level orbs as you go. None of this is new for a JRPG, but what separates Bravely Default from other games is its magnificent job system. Let's take a look at it. Seth, Gloria, Elvis, and Adele are the 4 members of your party, now and forever, with no way to swap in other characters, but that doesn't mean every playthrough will be the same. The job system in Bravely Default is where the diversity happens. There are about a couple dozen jobs to discover in this game, and you not only get to switch each character's job whenever you want to, they're even allowed to have sub-jobs. But let's back up a second. There are just 2 jobs available to you at the start of the game: Black Mage and Freelancer. The Black Mage is exactly what you know it to be. Fire, thunder, blizzard magic, and the higher you level up that job with each character, the more powerful the spells become. Just like in Final Fantasy, Fire becomes Fyra, and that becomes Firaga. Elvis starts as a Black Mage, and while powerful, I found myself constantly running out of MP quickly. He'll be your heavy hitter early on, though. The other job, Freelancer, is far more important to the game than the name suggests. It might be the most important job in the game, actually. For each job and character, you can level it up to 12 times. As you reach each new level, you gain either a new battle action or player attribute you can use. For Freelancer, there are several important ones critical to beating the game. JP Up and JP Up and Up, attributes you can apply to your character, let you level up any other job much faster than the default. I highly recommend trying to get all 4 of your characters to level 12 Freelancer within the first 15 to 20 hours of the game. Grind if you need to, because you'll gain so much time back later with these. Sometimes you realize you want a certain job attribute, and being able to level up at any point in the game much faster is key. There's also Body Slam, quite possibly an overpowered attack that any level 11 Freelancer can do. It does cost extra BP, but I'll explain what that is and how to get around it when we talk about the battle system. Trust me though, I kept 2 of my characters with Freelancer as a sub-job nearly the entire game. It is worth maxing out this job for everyone. Now, as you progress through the main story, you'll encounter bosses who give you asterisks as you defeat them. These asterisks are jobs. Once you have an asterisk, you can assign the associated job to any character from there on out. The first bosses you come across will give you Vanguard and White Mage. You want 4 Vanguards in your party? You can do that. And now with 4 possible jobs, this is when you really start planning out your party, and the game gets to be so much fun. Every new job you obtain just gets your creative juices flowing, but that's not all. Like I said, as you level up these jobs with your characters, you gain new attributes that you can mix and match so well with one another. And job levels, character levels, your attributes and equipment all influence how you approach battles and get through the game. The combinations become unlimited, and you'll have a blast customizing and seeing each custom outfit that's individual for every character. So now, perhaps you have a full-on mage army. What do you do with it? Let's look at how combat works. Combat in Bravely Default 2 is turn-based, just like before. Just like in thousands of games, really. But the Brave default system that is core to the very name of the game is what makes things interesting. Combat is initiated by running into enemies in the overworld or in dungeons. You can see who you'll fight, though there are almost always more enemies in the encounter than just the one you saw. When each character takes their turn, they can choose to attack, use a job-related skill, or use an item. Or they can be brave. On your first turn, your BP counter is 0. This stands for brave points. You can choose to borrow future turns now and make multiple attacks. The downside to this is that when your turn comes around again, if the BP meter is less than 0, then it will increment and your turn is skipped until it hits 0 again. That's right, you really did borrow that move, but now you have to pay it back. Alternatively, you can choose to default. Defaulting is basically defending, but you also allow yourself to use this move later. Your BP meter increments to greater than 0, and so later you can take multiple turns at once. Even better, when you do this, you're no longer borrowing anymore. These were moves that you saved up so you can take your next turn much more quickly. This leads to all sorts of strategies. For example, when I'm grinding against weaker enemies, I just do a full-scale Brave attack with all my characters because I know I can wipe out all of the enemies within 16 attacks. If I'm mistaken, my enemies will damage me many times in a completely defenseless state before I get a chance to make my next move, but it greatly improves my grinding speed. If I want to be more careful in battle, I can default early on. This lessens damage from incoming attacks while storing moves I can use later instead. Now, you might be wondering, why not just attack one turn at a time? What's the value in saving up a few attacks and then using them at once? Well, I can do that, but the attacks that come from the enemies will be undefended, so I'm taking more damage than if I default and use my attacks later. Additionally, there are attributes and items that work off of your current BP, so you can make more powerful attacks if you store that BP up and unload all at once. You'll find your strategy varies depending on who you're fighting and your current vitality meters. It's also smart to combine the various job attributes you've earned to make characters much stronger than the sum of their parts. The possibilities are limitless, but I'll share with you one strategy I used for much of the game. Let's talk about that body slam I mentioned earlier. You get this attack when you reach Freelancer level 11. It's a full body attack that is really strong, but it costs you 1 BP on top of the move you're already making. That means even at the very start of battle, you can only use it twice before you exhaust yourself completely. You'll have to wait 4 turns to make your next move, but you only got to use it twice. However, you'll come across the Pictomancer job midway through the game. I won't spoil what that job is, but when you reach level 9, you get Sub-Job BP Saver. This attribute reduces the BP cost of moves by your sub-job by 1. I applied this to my Body Slammer dudes, made Freelancer their sub-job, not their main job, and now I can use Body Slam as an attack without any BP penalty. And boy howdy did I wreck bosses with it. This was my attack strategy for the whole rest of the game and right through the final boss. And that's what makes this game so fun. Everyone has a combo they've discovered on their own, unique building blocks, mixing and matching to make your party super powerful. It's a lot of fun and gives the game tons of replayability, even if the story stays exactly the same. Here's another one. One of my favorite jobs is Beastmaster. This class lets you kidnap enemies rather than defeat them. Just like in Pokemon, if you weaken an enemy, you get a chance to capture them. If you do, you can use that enemy as an attack against future enemies, specifically bosses. And some of these monsters can be powerful. My favorite is one called Katesith. You can find these mustachioed cats in one place, a haunted house in Savalon, and I recommend hoarding these bad boys. When used as an attack by a Beastmaster, they can freeze enemies for 3 full turns. And not just enemies, bosses. So all these aspects of the game are great, but is the game great?
Rest is merely a sideshow.
Yes, Bravely Default 2 is a great JRPG. The job system gives it depth and replayability, and the new overworld style and improved graphics makes the world feel realer than it has in the past. Dungeons never feel punishingly long, and never once was I starved for a breakpoint. In fact, it was really easy to find them everywhere, which allows you to save, refresh your health, and grind like crazy. There are a few quirks to the game that did bug me though. This loading screen right here, oh my gosh. There are lots of loading screens in the game, most of them fairly quick, but you're just constantly bombarded by them and it can pull you out of the experience at times. Going through a door? Loading screen. Dialogue about to start? Loading screen. Just madness, especially in Wayward Woods. Even the enemy encounters take longer to start than I'd like, but at least this loading screen doesn't appear. It's a JRPG, and honestly, I think I'm falling out of love with the genre in my old age. But this is as fun a JRPG as I've played in some time. And no, Drew, it doesn't stand for Junior RPG. I'm already looking forward to a second playthrough down the road to try some of the jobs I never touched and see what new combinations of attacks I can put together. Bravely Default is instantly a top 10 RPG on the Switch, and I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Like this review? Join me, John, and my partner Drew on the Dads After Dark show, a weekly podcast you can find on your favorite podcasting app. We talk Nintendo, non-Tendo, and it's really just for the dads, not the kids. We have a top 10 of topics every week, so check us out. And as always, keep an eye on the Nintendo Dads YouTube channel for more content just like this. Thanks for watching.